Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you all for your support of the American Discovery Trail. Because without your support, we would not be here today, and there would not be an American Discovery Trail. And as I clicked through, who's here, I recognized a lot of names of people who've been supporting us for a long time. And so I just want to extend our thanks. I'm based in Charlottesville, Virginia, and it's a beautiful autumn day here. And I sort of want to get out in the afternoon. And so we'll try to keep things moving and be informative without dragging things out very much. In the previous two virtual meetings, I gave a kind of a brief history and summary of the rationale for the American Discovery Trail. I'm not going to do that this time because if you're just dying to have that information, you can go to our YouTube channel and see the recordings from the previous meetings, and that's at youtube.com/American Discovery Trail. Pretty easy to remember, youtube.com/American Discovery Trail. I'm just going to touch on a few of the highlights of our past year in the for the trail. And I think as Carol mentioned, if you have questions, I invite you to go down. You'll see the chat, little chat symbol at the bottom of your screen. And if you click on that, you can submit a question, and we might not get to them till the end of the meeting because I can't really multitask well enough to watch all the chat things come on and figure out how to answer as we go. One of the big things I would say that happened this year is that with the waning of the pandemic and the opening of the country, the travel really resumed on the trail this year. And I'm just going to talk about a few of the people that travelers that I find particularly interesting. One we'll hear from later on today is Brianna DeSanctis, who has been through hiking the trail, and we'll get a report from the trail. I'll also mention eastbound through hiker Bernie Krause because he's been posting so many amazing photos in our Facebook group, along with interesting musings. And people look at his pictures and say, how does he getting those with a camera? So I don't really encourage anybody to be on Facebook, but if you are on Facebook, our Facebook group and our public page are both really interesting things to do. Another section hiker who I find to be fascinating is Mary Davison, the trail name Medicare pastor, who is, I think, over 80 years old at this point, and she's section hiking. This year in the spring, she hiked from Nebraska, somewhere in Nebraska, to Denver, and then she had her plans disrupted by wildfires to hike in California, so she hiked in Nevada and Utah some. And she section hiked about 80% of the trail. She's written a book or two about it. So I just think she's an interesting person. Another interesting approach is by Brad and Kay McKim, and he's the guy who's said he wants to hike as much of the trail east of the Rockies before he's 70. So he just finished another 100 miles in Missouri, and I think that's the interesting part of the trail, aspect of the trail, is that he's saying, well, I can't. He's feeling too old to go out and do some of the harder portions of the trail, but he figures he can do the plains in the eastern section. Now, a place where we've been making a lot of progress in recent years is installing signage. And this is partly thanks to legislation by our legislative liaison, Peter Chetley, who convinced Congress to pass a couple of years ago a bill that instructs managers of federal lands to install signs marking the ADT on the lands they manage. And so thanks to that legislation, we've gotten signage installed in high-profile places like the C&O Canal National Historic Park near Washington, D.C., and Gateway Arch in St. Louis. Another important place signs went up recently was in the Tahoe National Forest in California and Nevada, along the Tahoe Rim Trail, and that was our California coordinator, John Mercurio, who actually installed those signs himself. In our autumn newsletter, if it's made it to your mailbox yet, the post office has not been very cooperative in getting that one out. I just got mine, even though it had been mailed about a month ago. Anyway, it has a story about the efforts of our Colorado State Coordinator, Steve Hill's signage efforts in like 6 national parks and 9 ranger districts in Colorado. And Steve has worked on getting signs up on more than 40 trails in his state, including federal land, state parks, and county, local, and private parks and greenways. And each one of those requires a presentation, a meeting, and obtaining permission from each land manager along the way, and then associated follow-up. And that sort of illustrates the challenges of getting signs up on the American Discovery Trail when in our approach of co-aligning with existing trails. One of the questions we get a lot is whether you can follow the trail by following the signs, and the answer still remains no, not yet, but we're working on it. Another kind of achievement that we've had this year, another action we do is we write letters to support local projects, because being associated with the National Coast to Coast Trail helps them get funding. So we've gotten involved in, I'll just give a couple examples of that this year. There's a pedestrian access on there's a question about pedestrian access on a major bridge that's being built across the Ohio River. And there's a large coalition advocating for there to be pedestrian access, even though it's not part of the American Discovery Trail. It would provide access to the trail. So we've written letters about that. We've written, for example, a letter for a grant application for a trail in the Quad Cities area of Illinois and Iowa. Other progress that we made this year is we renewed our trademarks, which we'd lost our longtime attorney several years ago and had not and had been without one for several years, and we had somebody, John Pennington, step up and agree to be our counsel again, and he guided us through renewing our trademarks and submitting some of our turn-by-turn trail directions for formal copyright protection. So that was another place we made progress. We implemented a user recognition program where if you've hiked parts of the trail, you can get stickers and recognition goodies if you go in and sign up on our site. I would say our budget is still much smaller than we'd like it to be, but we've accumulated a comfortable surplus over the years. We did implement a car donation program, and we got our first contribution from that this year. And one of my personal goals for the coming year is to actually greatly expand our budget through more fundraising. And I'd say our membership is still small, but it has been going in the right direction. It's been trending upward in the last years. And then this year, we initiated a couple of new ways to raise our profile. We took out ads in Backpacker Magazine, in Outside Magazine, which should be showing up on your screen there. That's the one down at the bottom. And then another thing we did was we contracted with Brad Merrow, who hiked coast to coast carrying video equipment, and we made a nice promotional video designed. It's designed especially to meet some of the requirements of the combined federal campaign, but it can be used for other promotional applications on the internet. And it's on our YouTube channel. But if I can get this to cooperate, I'll show it to you now.
America awaits you. Its land stretches out from ocean to ocean, cradling forests, deserts, prairies, and mountains. Discovery leads us onwards, seeking to live life beyond the shackles of the everyday drives us to adventure. The American Discovery Trail exists to answer this call, to provide the hardy and adventurous the opportunity to learn about our land traversing through its very heart and soul. The American Discovery Trail connects into a tapestry of unequaled beauty and revelation. Freedom and liberty are the founding principles of our country, and the American Discovery Trail endeavors to provide these to all who seek to walk, bike, run, or gallop along its path.
Okay, so that was the video, and that concludes what I wanted to say. But one of our other main activities this year was trying to push for some legislation that would have the American Discovery Trail made a formal part of the National Trail System. And so I'm going to turn the mic over to Peter to give a little report on that and give you an update.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Hello, everyone, and I'm happy to give an update on where we are and what we've done this year on legislation, which was a major focus of us for a good part of the year. One of our long-standing goals is to finish the action that the original study way back in 1996 suggested, and that was to make the American Discovery Trail an official part of the U.S. National Trail System. And that was the purpose of our legislative efforts this year. And I'll cover it in three parts: the House, part one; Senate, part two; and third, our discussion with the National Park Service. Now, in the House, we were lucky and we persuaded Congressman Mark DeSaulnier from the East Bay in California to introduce our bill and become the sponsor. And he did that. And then many of you sprung into action and really came through and got local support to encourage your local members of Congress to co-sponsor our bill. And that was a phenomenal effort. And I want to point out, just praise three particular folks. The first is Sharon Weekly in West Virginia. She got both of her conservative Republican members of Congress to co-sponsor. Second, Steve Hill in Colorado lined up a whole truckload of his members of Congress, the House, to also co-sponsor. But the final effort was by a group from Indiana, Richard Vonnegut and Gary Davis and Jim Bishop, and they got the vast majority of the Republican members of the House in Indiana and elsewhere to co-sponsor. The end result of this is we got 64 members to co-sponsor. That's a phenomenal number. Most of the bills that get introduced in the House that aren't national bills, like changing Social Security or something, have less than 5 co-sponsors. We had 64. It was bipartisan. We always want to stress that. It's not really political. It's not partisan. It was 24 states. I mean, think of that. The American Discovery Trail goes through 15 states. We got folks way outside in other parts of the country: New York, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Oregon, Tennessee, Arizona, other places to co-sponsor the bill, which was a huge achievement. We had a hearing in April in the House, and that was good. We had a strong showing in that hearing. The chairman of the subcommittee running the hearing, Congressman Joe Neguse from Colorado, from Fort Collins, Colorado, said, in his view during the hearing, this was a bill whose time has come. It's here. And he said he wanted to get it across the finish line later this year. So that was great. Now, the problem was that the National Park Service objected. And they didn't really get into details with their objections, but raised several sort of vague and confusing, a little bit about safety and roads. And they even claimed they didn't know the route that the American Discovery Trail took across the country. And we sent a long, detailed rebuttal to that back to the House committee. So that's part one, the House. Part two, the Senate. In late summer, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware introduced a companion bill to the House bill, the very same text, which is critical. And they ended up getting 3 co-sponsors, again, bipartisan. Our Indiana colleagues got both of their conservative Republican senators, Young and Braun, Mike Braun and Todd Young, to co-sponsor, as well as in Ohio, Sherrod Brown. So we have 4 co-sponsors there in the Senate bill. And we were lucky that the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee also held a hearing. And we pushed for our bill there. But again, unfortunately, the Park Service again objected to our bill, which comes to my third point section that I want to cover, which is our discussions with the Park Service. After the April hearing in the House, we said we got to talk to the Park Service, and we tried to schedule a meeting. But they kept stalling and stalling and stalling. And finally, at the very last day in September, we held a short Zoom meeting with some of the key decision makers in the National Park Service. And they tried to explain a little bit more of their objections. First, Eric Seaborg said, you guys have been saying for years, especially since April, you're ready and willing to talk and negotiate with us. So do you have an alternative text? Can you give us some amended language that would make the bill introduced in both the House and the Senate acceptable to you? And they said, no, we're not going to do that. Basically, they had 3 objections, which I'll cover briefly. First, they didn't want to amend the National Trails System Act. That's the major act way back in 1968 for just us, for just the American Discovery Trail. They said, if we're going to amend this, we should combine with a bunch of other trail organizations and all work together to come up with sort of one catch-all fix to the act. The groups that they mentioned was the Rails to Trails and the East Coast Greenway. And we pushed them a little bit on that. And they said, well, who? And so on. And they said, oh, lots of people, lots of cities, Department of Transportation, other groups. And they sort of wanted to lead us to a swamp where the group would be so big it's almost unworkable. Now, we objected to that suggestion by the Park Service on 2 grounds. First, we just want to do what your Park Service study originally suggested and recommended way back when you did the study on what should happen to the American Discovery Trail. Just make it a Discovery Trail, a 3rd category. All we're doing is following your suggestion. And secondly, these other groups, I'm thinking of the Rails to Trails and East Coast Greenway, they're really good groups, but their model and structure is totally different from ours. Their focus is on getting money, getting grants, getting appropriations from the federal government and state governments to buy land to complete their trails. Our situation is totally different. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for appropriations. We don't want to buy new land. The Discovery Trail, as I think all of you know, exists. It's there. All we want to do is make it official. So combining their model and ours into one sort of a hybrid model doesn't make sense to us. The second point that the Park Service raised in their objections was safety. They asserted that parts of our trail are on roads, which is true and accurate, and that this was unsafe. And we countered and said, wait a minute, every year we're improving the route of the Discovery Trail. When local cities, local counties, parks build new trails in those parks, we relocate the American Discovery Trail off of the highways, the little roads, county roads that they're on, onto those newly built parks. So we're steadily improving the trail. And this is a long-term goal for us, but we're making progress every year. And so then we said, but wait a minute, you're being really hypocritical. Most, if not all, of the scenic roads, the scenic trails in the National Trail System also have road sections. Why are you singling us out for criticism when your existing trails in the system also have roads? For example, the Appalachian Trail, one of the crown jewels of the system, when they became designated way back in '68, half of the AT was on roads. Historic trails are mostly roads. So why are you singling out for criticism the American Discovery Trail when we're making great progress and really haven't heard of many safety complaints from the many, many people that use our trails? They never really gave us a good answer to that. The third main objection by the Park Service was they wanted to change our bill in a particular way. Our bill says we're not out to acquire land, and that's intentional. We wanted to calm the worries of many of the folks out west that thought this was a giant land grab. And so we said, we're not going to use eminent domain. We're not out to acquire land. We're not out to buy buffer zones, that kind of stuff. And the Park Service says, no, you should get rid of all that and have maintained these rights. And we said, that's basically a poison pill. If you require us to do that, many of our supporters, particularly from Western states, are going to withdraw their support. Now, the result of all this wasn't a negotiating meeting. This was sort of an initial discussion meeting, trying to clarify where the Park Service was coming from. And we never really got into details or alternative language, and that remains ahead. So the result is we had no markup bill, which is the step in the legislative process after a hearing, no markup in either the House or the Senate. One of the reasons is that the staff director of the House subcommittee publicly said during our meeting, Congress should not pass a bill, a law, that the implementing federal agency doesn't like. In other words, the Park Service doesn't like our bills, so we, Congress, aren't going to pass that and force them to do this. So that basically stopped us, and we've now run out of time. All the bills die at the end of the year, end of the session, December 31. And there's a very slight but microscopic chance that maybe during the lame duck session in after the election in Thanksgiving, in November and in December, they might glue together a whole bunch of little land bills, public land bills, in one omnibus bill and include us. I don't think that's going to happen because our bill never came to a vote and was passed by either floor. So I think we're basically at a major brick in the wall stuck here, and we'll have to make major decisions in our annual meeting in November, and maybe with your help, decide where we go from here. Do we try again? Do we amend our bill? Do we try to work with the National Park Service on amendments and get into this sort of negotiating swamp that they want to get us in? And So we're at a major junction, major decision point where we're going to need to decide next year where we go. But before that, I want to thank all of you for your huge effort in persuading your members of Congress to support us. And we've really, going up to 64 co-sponsors in the House is phenomenal. And that's a great record to build on in the future. And I want to thank all of you for your effort there. And if there's questions, we can answer them down the road. But now it's my honor to introduce our next speaker, who is Laurel Foote. And Laurel and her late husband were the first people to do the American Discovery Trail coast to coast way back in 97, 98. So huge pioneering achievement. And she's a past president of our American Discovery Trail Society. And presently she edits that newsletter that all of you get, and I hope enjoy quarterly. So Laurel, it's great to give you the floor.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much, Peter. And I am really, this is the favorite part for me of the annual membership meeting, because I have the honor of presenting the Society's prestigious Happy Feet Award. And as most of you know, the American Discovery Trail Society is largely a member-based organization. I mean, a volunteer-based organization. And we only have the help of one single part-time staff member. She does a great job, but she can't do it all by herself. So we've really have had to rely on volunteers over the year, and with the help of all these volunteers, we've accomplished a lot. And so the Happy Feet Award was established in the year 2000 to recognize the efforts of all these volunteers. And I want to tell you what the plaque on the award says. It says, awarded to the volunteer whose actions, enthusiasm, and commitment to the American Discovery Trail serve as an inspiration to others. And the person who is this year's recipient of the Happy Feet Award has met those goals hands down. And so we would like to present the Happy Feet Award this year to John Pennington. And let me tell you a little bit about John Pennington. Eric had mentioned him earlier in the meeting, but John is a partner in the intellectual property practice of Smith, Gambrill, Russell in Washington, D.C., and he's an expert in trademark and intellectual property law. He came to our attention because he volunteered to be a counsel for the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. And so we wrote to him saying that the American Discovery Trail Society needed help with some trademark and copyright issues. And he immediately agreed to not only help us with that, but also to become our counsel on a pro bono basis. And as Garrick mentioned earlier, we haven't had a pro bono counsel for a number of years now, so he was filling a really big void for us. It turns out that registering trademarks and copyrights for volunteer-based organizations with complicated authorship are a lot of work and a lot more complicated than anyone might expect. John spent hours researching precedents and ensuring that we dotted all of our I's and crossed all of our T's in our applications. And he also provided his expertise in advising us on ongoing and potential infringement and copyright issues. So he did all this. What's even more amazing is he did all this while becoming a first-time father shortly after he agreed to help the American Discovery Trail Society. He and his wife, they're both avid hikers, they spent their honeymoon hiking Appalachian Trail's 100-mile wilderness. He is a native of Virginia and a graduate of the George Washington University School of Law. John has been recognized by the National Trial Lawyers Association as its top 40 under 40. His volunteer work was honored this year by being named as a pro bono service honor roll of the Virginia Access to Justice Commission. So on behalf of the American Discovery Trail, John, we are so grateful for your generosity in sharing your time, sharing your expertise, and all of your efforts in helping not only the American Discovery Trail Society, but also all of the users of the trail and helping us to accomplish what we want. Thank you, John.
And I just received a message from John that he's had an emergency this morning. He was planning to be here. But he hopes to still be here. I replied to his email by saying, duck in at any time you can because we have a surprise for you. But
well, I can say it all over again when he arrives, but whatever. He can also listen to it on the recording.
yeah, okay. Well, thanks. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Peter and Laurel, for those. And let me introduce an official part of the meeting, which is the election of the members of the board of directors, and the chair of the nominating committee is Lori Van Hook. So, and Lori, I think, is at a campground somewhere. So take it away, Lori.
Yes, so hopefully can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So welcome everybody, good afternoon. We have 6 individuals on our slate for new or renewal board membership. I do want to share with you a little bit about our individuals on our slate this year. First off is Harold Draper. He is a longtime ADT supporter. He is also the coordinator for the state of Missouri. He's retired for a really nice career in the National Environment Policy Act compliance and dealt with environmental permitting, emergency management. And he also works as a volunteer, has many years of experience for trails and conservation. And he is the past president of the National Association of Environmental Professionals and past member of the Committee on Environmental Analysis and Transportation of the Transportation Research Board. Next, we have Tom Lilly, who is a new nomination for the ADTS this year. In his 40-year professional career, Tom Lilly served as an Air Force officer, U.S. Senate professional staff member, federal senior executive, and has extensive experience in conservation environmental programs and the legislative process. Upon retirement from the USAF in 2003, Tom joined the Republican staff of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee and managed the legislative process for the Subcommittee on National Parks for the 108th to 111th Congresses. Next, we have Donna Luke. She has served on the board and as the Washington, D.C. coordinator since 2011. She was on the 4-person team that spent 5 months on the road trail promoting the grand opening of the American Discovery Trail in the year 2000. And she graduated from the University of Iowa with a degree in geography and has a master's from University of Montana in environmental studies. She also has worked in government relations for the Nature Conservancy in Montana and Virginia. And she has worked in the legal field since 1998. Next, we have Bob Palin, and he has been our coordinator for the state of Utah since 2016. And in that time, he has done so much more than, well, we'll say in the Beehive State. He has put his considerable information technology skills to work to create a new website for the ADT Society. He's created a platform for our merchandise store. And he has also created a new database to house all of our important turn-by-turn directions for our trail and is updating and improving the related data and documents. His home is in Torrey and is close to the ADT, about halfway through the state. He's an outdoor enthusiast, and he has served as an officer of ski, soccer, and motorcycle clubs and helped arrange many events for the organizations. He's also hiked throughout the Western US and extensively explored Utah by motorcycle, 4-wheel, and on foot. I think this is either next to last. Yes, our next to last candidate is Brian Stark, and he brings a diverse background in outdoor and environmental education to the ADT Society from both the US and abroad. After working as a co-director at an outdoor summer camp in Indiana, he began teaching English in Arizona. He earned his undergraduate degree in communication right on the American Discovery Trail while attending Hanover College in Southern Indiana. Currently, Brian lives overseas, but has served as the head of the English department at the American International School in Kuwait. He has continued his international teaching and currently serves as academic dean at an international boarding school in the heart of the Swiss Alps, where he lives with his wife and 2 daughters. He enjoys baking and playing banjo. And while his international lifestyle doesn't get him on the ADT as often as he would like, as national coordinator, he still enjoys helping promote and support America's first coast-to-coast trail. And then finally, we have Richard Vonnegut. Richard, he is our Southern Indiana State Coordinator since 2016. He stepped into the position with a long history of trail use and support, and is an extensive trekker since the 1960s. He has also volunteered in many states and he loves trails, which had made him become a trail advocate, eventually helping form the Hoosier Rails to Trails Council, and as a way to petition the city of Indianapolis to convert an abandoned rail line into the Monon Rail Trail since 1980, or I should say in 1987. Over the years, these organizations have helped preserve 143 miles of corridor land, including 85 miles of open or partially open trails, and incubated 12 local trail groups and created an endowment for trail maintenance and improvements. Richard is a lifelong hiker and bicyclist who has biked across Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, and he is a 30-year plus member of the Indianapolis Hiking Club and a 40-year member of the Central Indiana Bicycling Association. That concludes our list for this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Lori.
You're
And
welcome.
so that's the slate. And somebody who knows more about the rules of order than I do said that since it comes from the nominating, it's a committee report, we don't need to have a second. So I just wanted to call for a vote in favor of the slate. And you can vote in affirmatively in favor. You can either just raise your hand on your screen and we'll look at that and count it, or if you get your cursor down to a place where it says reactions, if you click on that and you raise your hand, like you get a little thing like just came up on mine. So if everybody would do that. And I'll point out that it's that you're allowed to vote for yourself. We don't worry about being impolite.
Just hold them up for a moment, please, if you're holding them up real, for real. So we can take a count.
Okay, well, there's a few places where all we have are screens. So it looked to me like everybody I could see was voting yes. So now if you'll click on lower your hands, and we'll see if there are any no votes. All right, I'm not registering any no votes, so I think it was, as they say, by acclamation. So thank you all for voting. Thank you all for, and thank you, Lori, for that report. And now, as they say, it's time for our feature presentation. Brianna DeSanctis is an avid outdoors woman and a writer from Farmington, Maine. She thru hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2015 and has since hiked and paddled thousands of miles all over the country. She's been writing columns for her. She left the Atlantic coast on the American Discovery Trail at the start of January and has covered more than 2,700 miles. She's been writing columns for her local newspaper, giving presentations in communities along the trail and giving lots of interviews to journalists. And she is joining us from the high country of Colorado. Last I heard, it was like Eagle County or something. So Brianna, we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good, because I have someone leaf blowing next door and I'm not sure what to do about it. My name is Brianna DeSanctis. Hi, nice to see everybody here today. Like you said, yeah, I started the American Discovery Trail on New Year's Day, and I feel as though I've made very slow progress. But I've also been giving a lot of presentations, and I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to do that. I'm actually headed to a presentation right after this meeting. And so I kind of like threw up the banner really quick for you guys, so it looks a little official, but I'm sitting here in Edwards, Colorado right now. And so basically, I just want to thank you all again for having me here today. And thank you to all the coordinators that work so hard and all of your volunteer hours. They're definitely not, they don't go unseen. It's very appreciated. And it's important for me to stress that without the hikers of this trail, it would be really hard to gather a lot of information, I think. And so I want to congratulate all the people that have hiked this trail or hiked parts of it, or have gone and cleaned up trash or anything like that. And so I really do love hiking the American Discovery Trail. It's really great. There have been like so many opportunities for me to talk to other people and to raise awareness about the trail. And the most important thing for me is to empower others. So when I give my talks, I love speaking to young children and women and people that otherwise might not think that they could do something like this. And it's just so important for me to get that reach out there. So, excuse me. So I've been speaking to a lot of reporters and stuff like that, and staying in cities for a week to give presentations kind of holds me back. So now I am here in Colorado, and I've got quite a few miles left to go, quite a few thousand miles left to go. But I plan on flipping to Ohio once it gets too cold out here, and hiking the northern route this winter, and then finishing the entire trail in the fall, I think. So it's not easy. It's getting a little hard out here. I'm currently sharing the Continental Divide Trail and the Colorado Trail. So on trail, I am in Camp Hale right now. But it's this is kind of like, it's way different than the Appalachian Trail. It was a lot of road walking in the beginning, like you all know. But you know, when you get on the trail, it's kind of like a relief from the road walking, and then you hike hard trails and you get back on the road and you're like, wow, I really needed this. And Kansas and Missouri were probably the hardest states for me because they were very flat. There was a lot of sun. It was really hot and humid, but the people are really nice. And I talked to other hikers previous years, and everybody laughs because they always say, well, one thing you say about Kansas is we love the people. So, but I have met so many awesome people on this trail. And I think that's something incredible to point out, is when you're doing something like this of such magnitude and people see that, you're meeting people one-on-one, you're not behind a computer screen, you're going out speaking to people, and all they want to do is help. So I have been able to raise quite a bit of money for the American Discovery Trail Society last year. And I have a lot of friends and family members that have joined membership. So I think that's really great. So coming up, I've got a couple more presentations around here, and then I will be moving forward into the wild unknown of Colorado. And I'm hoping I stay warm enough to go as far as I can before I have to flip to Ohio. So I did not get any media together today, and I apologize, but you have to understand I'm hiking. So I have my Facebook page, and I have all my articles in the newspaper, and I post a lot of pictures. And you can look at those all online. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys have any questions for me or anything else you'd like for me to talk about.
Curious as to what you would, just one story of some trail magic or someone you met that just really surprised you with how above and beyond they might have gone.
Okay, so let me share this story with you. This is what I close a lot of my presentations with. And because I feel like it's super important just to point it out, because sometimes I've had like great trail magic. I've had awesome people encounters and it's been amazing. But so my favorite one is I was in Southern Illinois and I was staying with some of my friends that I hiked the Appalachian Trail with. And we went to it's like a downtown concert series. And it was over and we're getting ready to leave. And this woman came up to us and she had gone to high school with my friend and she had her kids with her and everything. And so he introduced her to me and told her what I was doing and everything. And she had all of her kids beside her. And she looked right at me and she goes, "Don't you have anything better to do?" And I was like, "Yes, thank you." So I said, "You know what? I don't have anything better to do because I'm living my best life. I'm doing what I love right now. I am here living in the real world, talking to people, inspiring people." And I kind of just gave her I kind of was trying to aim it for the kids because they were really listening. And so we talked a little bit and she's like, "Well, I could never do that." I'm like, "Yes, you could. Anybody could do it." So they left. And about 20 minutes later, we're packing up our chairs. And she calls my friend and she said, "So Todd, my children have been asking me questions about your friend the entire way home. So we just got home. If you can be there for like 10 more minutes, we're turning around, we're coming back because they want to ask her some questions." And so they came back and they had all these questions for me and we took pictures together. And so when I give my presentation, I always close and I say, "No, I have one question for you. Don't you have anything better to do?" And that's probably one of my favorite stories. Other than that, see, I got that because I used to have to go to church all the time when I was little. So kind of like pastor stories, But other than that, I've been walking down the road and there was a woman in West Virginia. It was getting late. I had no idea where I was going to put my tent up. There were a bunch of hillbillies everywhere. And I had no idea where I was going to sleep that night. And so this woman drives by with her dogs in the car and I waved and she turned around and came back and she stopped the truck and she said, "Are you a hiker?" And I was like, "Yep, how'd you guess?" And so she said, "Do you need a place to stay tonight?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I do." And so she brought me to her house. We had dinner together. We shared some stories and now she has a radio show. So she had invited me to be on her radio show when I was in, where was I? Cripple Creek. And so I did that. But it's just, you meet a lot of so many kind people. Most of them do not know that the American Discovery Trail exists. So I try to tell them about that. And I have little business cards that I give to everybody. So those really get a good reach. And I get a lot of phone calls that way about, talking in the news and things like that. So that's another really good story. Just so many people, I could go on for hours about every single person that's helped me on the trail or met me or surprised me. I had another Appalachian thru hiker friend who was working in Kansas and he dropped off a cooler on the Flint Hills Trail with soda and a beer and some snacks and everything. And that was really great to go find that. And he hit it really well because, he's a thru hiker, so he knows. So I had to crawl through the bushes and pick off some ticks and everything. But it was really great. It's those little things that mean a lot. And I always said that and I feel like this is true for thru hiking a lot of trails because you're outdoors all the time and you're really involved in nature and you are in tune with your circadian rhythms and you're living in the real world. You're surviving and you're thriving. And I always say that my worst day on trail is still better than my best day anywhere else. And that's the truth.
Thank you. Well, yeah, we hear that repeatedly, that the biggest discovery on the American Discovery Trail is how wonderful America's people are. So that's why I asked you that. And Bob, we've got, let's see, how are we doing? We got just a couple minutes. Bob said, ask her about the Garmin meeting.
Yeah, okay. So when I got to Kansas City, just like when I was in Cincinnati, every time I get to a big city, I really try to take a lot of time to do some research. I will reach out to, one of the best ways I find places to speak is I will look at the local Facebook groups in the area, like hiking groups, women's groups, any kind of group that I think might be relevant. And even if it's just like a classified to post an event or something. And I just reach out and I ask for venues. I said, where can I present? Where can I talk about my walk? Where can I inspire you? And I never contacted Garmin at all. Brian Brooker, the vice president of Marcom for Garmin, emailed me and said, I would love for you to come speak in Kansas City. So when I was in Olathe, Kansas, I went to their absolutely gorgeous headquarters. And I was able to give a presentation. I think they gave me about an hour and a half. And they created this beautiful visual art thing for me. And I'm gonna have to, I'll try to find that and show it to you guys. But so I was able to speak to Garmin, and they had it streamed across all their, not just in Kansas, but like everywhere. So all their employees everywhere could view it. And it went really well. And I had the banner and everything. So thanks guys for letting me borrow this. And they ended up giving me a bunch of stuff. They gave me this hat. They gave me this shirt. They gave me a wardrobe. They gave me this Garmin watch, which I use all the time because otherwise I can never remember what date it is. And if you watch any of my live videos, you can watch back in February. I was going over Dolly Sods and I tried to say that it was July or something when I was saying the date. So this really helps me. So every time I just look and now I know where I am, what date it is, whatever. They gave me an InReach device, which I've been using out here since I'm in really remote places, and a lot of not quite technical, but harder things, and where it would be harder to, in case I fall and break my leg, it's going to be really hard to get somebody out there to help me. It would be a really long way for me to crawl out. So they gave me a bunch of stuff, and I'm in contact with them a lot. So that's a really good connection to have. And Garmin was really, really good to me. And they are excited about the trail, and they're excited about what I'm doing and what my mission is on this trail to inspire others and to raise awareness. So that was really important for me. And I've probably given at least 15 presentations. I go in and I'll speak I go to a lot of veterans organizations because the food is really cheap. And the people that I feel like a lot of veterans, they have a connection to what people are doing as far as doing something strenuous, outdoors, carrying a heavy backpack. Everybody can relate. And if you walk into a Legion or a VFW, you're not going to see 20 people on their phone like this. People are talking with each other and engaging with each other. So it's a really good avenue for me to speak. And I've had plenty of like impromptu presentations where the commander will say, hey, would you mind coming in here and giving a talk to us? And I was sitting in on a board meeting at a Lions Club or whatever it was, but somewhere I was camped out in the park, and this guy comes out and he asked me to come speak at their Lions Club meeting, whatever. And so I did, and they fed me and everything. It was really, really great. So those kinds of places are places I look for to talk, and as well as like parks and things like that. Sometimes I have 100 people, sometimes I have 10 people, and I never really know what to expect. So today I'm hoping for a big turnout because I did live here in Edwards, Colorado for quite a while. So I have a big support system here. And I know people that are driving 2 hours to come to my presentation today. So I'm excited for that. And the more people that are there, the better I feel. So yeah, really good stuff.
And are you carrying that banner with you? And I guess that means you're not going like totally ultra light.
This thing is so heavy, and every day I think about chucking it off the mountain, but for some reason I just don't. No, I have been sending it ahead. So right now I'm at my cousin's house, our house in Colorado. Since everybody says, where do you live? And I say, well, I live in my tent right now. I don't have a home anywhere at all at this point. So, yeah, so I'm here in Colorado. So this is my base. So, I have all my gear here. I have all my shoes, my extra clothes, and the banner stays here until we have to ship it somewhere for me to talk. This thing was at Garmin with me. This thing was at every presentation I've given since I've had it. So, and if you guys need it back, just let me know when I can send it to you. But I'm using that now. And then also when I was at Garmin, they gave me they have this program called Women of Adventure. And they gave me a big banner that says that on there too. So I put that up when I give my talks, and people can really relate to that. I just think it's so important for me to inspire other people and let them know what I'm doing, because it's, I'm not the first person that's ever hiked the American Discovery Trail or hiked coast to coast or anything like that, but you don't meet a lot of people that do that. And you don't meet a lot of people that do that are willing to share it with like tons of people at once. So, or have the time to do it. And I mean, this is the first time I haven't felt rushed on the trail, because now I'm just trying to go as far as I can before I fly to Ohio. And I need to make it last so that the snow melts by the time I get back here. Partially.
Brianna,
Yeah.
this is John Faisal out in California. And I just wanted to compliment you on a very inspiring talk. I can see how you can excite other people. And if you don't mind, I would love to steal your story about what happened back in Indiana to tell people when I go out there, because I've had the pleasure of being able to run across the country on the Discovery Trail years ago. And it's your stories remind me, Camp Hale, I remember that vividly when I went through in that whole area. And Colorado was my favorite state in going over. And when you get to California, let me know in advance, and I can set you up with some meetings with some interesting people out here in California. So we'll stay in touch, and good luck with the rest of your adventure on the American Discovery Trail, because that's what it is. It's an adventure, and it's hard to describe it to other people. They can only kind of guess what it's like, but they don't know what it is until they've actually done it. And you're experiencing that, and it brings back a lot of fond memories to me and those of us who are on this podcast or this Zoom, who have also done the same thing that you're doing right now. So anyway, congratulations, and we look forward to following you the rest of the way.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. Well, for me this morning.
Yes, well, good luck with your second presentation today. And we are so grateful that part of your mission to inspire others is a great win for us too, as you raise awareness of the American Discovery Trail across the country. Best of luck going through the high country and until such time as you turn around. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you guys ever, okay?
All right,
My volunteer hours and everything like that.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And speaking of volunteer hours,
Carol,
yes,
Carol, I want to interrupt you. I know you're supposed to wrap up the meeting now, but I wanted to mention two things, maybe. One is that I don't usually embarrass people who here attending the meeting, but I do want to note that we actually have one of my oldest friends is attending the meeting, and he's like on a bike trip, and he's riding his bike right now. Which, if you click through the things, you can you might see that. But anyway, I should not be talking about it, Denise. But I did want to point out that we did get the one. We got a message from Clyde Anderson about getting state funding to complete the Omaha-Lincoln segment. I think that's the Mopac Trail, and we're that's got a mention in the newsletter that just came out. But Clyde, if you don't want to, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and just telling us a little about that. I think I for one would be interested in hearing about it.
Well, Nebraska Sierra Club has a full-time lobbyist during the legislative session in Nebraska. We have a unicameral. We just have one house in Nebraska. And we were able to, he's a former senator and well-respected, and been a very effective lobbyist for us. And together, working with our volunteers and our lobbyists, we were able to get funding passed and overrode the governor's veto of the funding bill. So it was a major accomplishment. And what we're going to look forward to next year is getting funding, more funding for the Cowboy Trail across the northern counties of Nebraska, which is also a part of the American Discovery Trail, but it's long. And so it's just a slow process getting that upgraded. Several of the bridges still need to be completed and so forth. So anyway, it's an ongoing project. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, Carol, sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. Yes, so just to close up, you've heard from one person who's doing some great volunteer work for us, but we wanted to, for those of you on the meeting, let you know of some great ways if you would like to become more actively involved in the American Discovery Trail Society, that you can help. The primary first one always is if you live in a trail state or easy driving distance of a trail state and would like to be on a state committee or help to form a state committee, you can contact your state coordinator to get more information. State committees do everything from helping with signage to working with towns and municipalities to try, we've got these bills that help us with federal lands, but there are also lots of local jurisdictions that need signage, and that is a very complex, large-scale project state committees can help with. The way you find your state coordinator, if you're interested in such work, is to just go to our website, discoverytrail.org, and right on the homepage, one of the banners is The Trail. And if you click on The Trail, there's a state-by-state description, and the contact information for each state coordinator is under that state. Another program that we have that we could really use help with is we have a business member program. We have local, regional, and national memberships for businesses. The local ones are quite inexpensive, really, as such things go. And business members are allowed to have links to their websites on our website. They receive some advertisement space in our newsletters, and we would really love to beef up that program. That's a great way to fundraise for us, as well as raise awareness of the trail. We are in the process of writing our turn-by-turn directions west to east. They've always traditionally been east to west, so we can use help field testing those. For that, if you're interested in that, you would reach out to Bob Palin, the Utah State Coordinator. If you have big IT skills, you could also reach out to Bob, who is in the process of this big renovation, if you will, of our database. And of course, then a final way is we're always looking for corporate sponsors. If you
increase 5 for the fan.
If you happen to have, a corporation that you either work for or on the board of that might be interested in becoming a corporate sponsor for the American Discovery Trail, that would be a fabulous way you could help as well. And of course, if you have other ideas of things you think we should be doing, we are always interested in hearing that. So please reach out to me. My email is info@discoverytrail.org, and I can always send any queries or suggestions on to the committee, the relevant committee within the society. So are there any other questions today? Anything we can help anyone with?
This is not a question, but I just want to mention that I've increased my sponsorship this year, and I intend to continue that, of course, next year and so forth.
Thank you so much, Roger. Roger has been a real boon to the society for many, many years. And we thank you all for supporting the trail. Any other questions or comments before we close today? All right, well, thank you for your support and for taking the time out of your weekend to be with us, and we'll see you again next year.